This is Rusty Trombone, a.k.a. Russell Brand. And the title of this is, "It's Starting," in all caps. U.S. warmongers just made an ominous alliance. And then, I don't know, there's some interview, Texas Tribune. Starts.
Share with us who he might be voting for.
Dick Cheney will be voting for Kamala Harris.
Now, this...
Okay. Now, I personally think Dick Cheney really told Liz to I'll vote against the guy that fucking tried to attack you. Because you got to understand, also, Liz Cheney was attacked by Donald Trump. And it is not surprising that Dick Cheney would do everything he can to downplay or attack Donald Trump himself because of that. Because they're both cut from the same cloth. Yeah.
If you ask me, is the perfect post. Many of us feel like political vagrants these days.
Okay. I think he means he's sort of in the idea of politically homeless. Although I would... I think he's more like an undercover narc dangling around looking like he fits in so that he can pounce on somebody, I guess, is the idea.
Who do you vote for? Who will represent your interests? Isn't it becoming increasingly clear that politicians like Kamala Harris, Keir Starmer in my country, Justin Trudeau in Canada, Macron in France are...
But not Trump.
Essentially, Lula in Brazil are globalists with politicians, as I heard Dr. Robert Malone call
That's the World Economic Forum.
them on our Awakened Wonder Locals Oracle special. You've got to see that. It's fantastic.
No, I don't. I guess they at Rumble, which is, by the way, paid for by Peter Thiel, who's a married gay man who's a billionaire. His partner is a multi-millionaire, if not a billionaire himself. And Thiel had a lover as well, a male model, that strangely committed suicide off the balcony of one of their homes in Los Angeles. You know, he's J.D. Vance's buddy. Anyway, something about people without children that are, cat ladies. I don't know.
Fantastic. You have centralist bureaucrat,
Centralist bureaucrats.
technocrat political leaders who
Technocrat political leaders. You mean Elon Musk or
plainly work against the people.
against?
I love this post by Dave.
Kennedy Democrats are now Trump Republicans. Bush Republicans are now Harris Democrats. Yeah, nice try. No. No. Tea Party people, which kept Bush in office second term especially, and who showed up at the same people who showed up when John Kerry was running to support Bush with purple Band-Aids on their faces, are the same fuckers that had Trump Band-Aids on their ear and were mocking Tim Walz's service. Get the fuck out of here.
David Sachs.
And also, the entire Kennedy family is supporting Harris, and the one person who is from the Kennedy clan who is against everything now that Kennedy himself stood for, John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy stood for, RFK Jr., is now a Trump Republican. This is just fucking lame.
Kennedy Democrats are now Trump Republicans. Bush Republicans are now Harris Democrats. Kennedy, I suppose President Kennedy and RFK Sr., from the perspective of an outsider, were regarded as, they were called Camelot, and what Camelot means in our language over here in the UK was an utopian, Arcadian period where, whilst there were leaders, those leaders were somewhat divinely appointed. Now, I suppose if you scrutinise the Kennedy legacy, you might say there were mob connections via their father Joe. You might say that some of the promiscuity of the Kennedy brothers might not make the cut in this day and age. But when it came to ideals, when it came to the anti-deep state speeches. You will have seen JFK make some of those. When it came to Bobby Kennedy's position on matters of social justice, a lot of us still feel that those were two great men.
Right, but the Camelot part was not about any of the social justice stuff they did, and it certainly wasn't about JFK's anti-deep state stuff, which, by the way, that wasn't the deep state. At that point, you're talking about the spy work in the Cold War, where there were like entrenched military interests who were very like left over from McCarthyism that believed that the Russians had infiltrated parts of the U.S. government and were building up the military because they thought there was going to be a war not just against Russia, but against Russian sympathizers inside the United States, and that it was growing out of control. So, like, and again, completely from the perspective of that, during the 60s, when all this street strife was, eating up a lot of the news cycles and the like, that drove, that shifted the perspective of the American public.
Kennedy Democrats are now Trump Republicans.
Which is just dumb.
And Bush Republicans are now Harris Democrats.
Horse shit.
What world do we live in? Because Cheney has come out for Kamala Harris and Cheney has come out for Kamala Harris. So whichever one of the Cheneys you think is worst, it don't matter because they've both come out for Harris. You might not be a fan of Liz Cheney, for example, and I can't imagine.
All right, by the way, fuck what Dick Cheney's doing, but Liz Cheney's, obviously, she's the one who actually said this. Whether it's true or not is not important, and it's not going to affect my vote. It's just, it's the Rhinos, and that's why they're worried about it. Look at the look on his fucking face. That's what you look like when you're worried about the Republican vote for Trump slipping away, because it's another part of the base that's running from Trump, along with the Haley voter, for example. But how about just RFK Jr. and Donald Trump were both on Epstein's plane, both on Epstein's call logs, both buddies with them? How about that? How about one of them's wife hung herself after discovering his documented affairs and how he had treated her, and the other one buried his kid's mother on a fucking golf course?
That there's anyone in the world, other than perhaps Liz Cheney, who's a fan of Dick Cheney.
No. The joke of everybody's doing, like before James Earl Jones died, everybody's making Darth Vader jokes and fucking, the devil is now like, Trump's a bit much for me.
Kind of bizarre cross between Darth Vader and J.R. Ewing, snarling under a 10-gallon hat. That kind of Halliburton Emperor Palpatine, that string puller of George W. Bush, that man for whom...
Right, but again, under the premise that Dick Cheney is a tick that would rather the dog be alive because he cannot attach himself to a dead dog. That's why Dick Cheney supports Harris. Not because he supports her policies, but because a tick will die if the dog dies. He didn't find Jesus all of a sudden. He didn't find religion. He didn't come to his senses. He lives off the tick of America. And Trump will fucking wreck it so bad that there will be... This is exactly why the Russians aren't going to launch a fucking nuclear strike, because the entire country is not run by like communists like fucking Rudy Giuliani thinks, but by hedonists who want to live so they can smoke cigars on a fucking yacht surrounded by hookers that, are of a caliber of woman they couldn't even get in their heyday with charm, even if they had it, and certainly can't now that they look like fucking mole rats.
An oil field is a playground, and a Kurdish kiddie merely an excuse to bomb an Iraqi one. So if
a Kurdish kiddie is just an excuse to bomb an Iraqi one. You do realize that Donald Trump just let the Kurds be slaughtered even after they had fought alongside of us trying to stop ISIS. But I think if you bring up any of that, he'll just go, forever wars.
Kamala Harris's campaign are
Kamala, you fuck.
welcoming endorsements from the Bushes who took us.
No, they aren't. They're welcoming Liz Cheney because she's not her dad. But if you do believe we should murder people based on the sins of their parents, I weep for your children, I guess, considering what this asshole's accused of.
All to war on a lie, the lie that there were weapons of mass destruction, which caused millions of lives to be lost and probably.
By the way, 4 of his guests that he's had on, including Tucker Carlson, believe that there were weapons of mass destruction found in Iraq. Just letting you know.
Contributed to the.
They're not guests on my show. They're not on Tom Hartman. They're not on Stephanie's show. They're not on CNN. They're not on MSNBC. Any of that shit. They're on this asshole's show.
Escalating conditions of incendiary tension and massacre that are being experienced across the Middle East even today.
What? How are we responsible for the incendiary escalation of war going on in the Middle East? I'm trying to think of a time when that wouldn't have applied to some place in the Middle East, with or without us.
Then doesn't that tell you exactly what the Kamala Harris government is all about?
No, it doesn't. Unless, do we want to go through the number of sex offenders that work for the Trump campaign? I'm not talking about endorse him, work for him. Can we just start and end with Paul Manafort? Or the myriad of people who were busted for child porn or child sex trafficking that worked in the Trump campaign, for the Trump campaign, were rehired again?
War, and more war.
I'm sorry, what war has Biden or Harris declared since they got in office? What war ends if we stop supporting Ukraine, or I suppose stop supporting Israel? Or Gaza, I guess. I don't know which side of that he's on, really. I don't think he has a side in it. I think it just serves him to be able to say forever war. And by the way, just so you know, whenever somebody says forever wars, that's code for just let Israel fall. Why are we backing Israel? Why don't we just let the Arabs take over that area? Then we'll bomb the whole fucking place to glass. No more forever wars. A forever war is a religious war.
And all of it masked by cute, kooky little declarations about Starbucks cups being the wrong colour. Isn't it time that
What?
we all woke up? Isn't it time that we all woke up and smelled the Kamala coffee and stopped worrying about the colour of the lid and whether or not it clashed with our lipstick?
All right. I don't know what that reference is. I'm sure it's some sort of right-wing freak out on shitter or something. How about this? How about we just start small, Russell? How about this? How about everybody stop listening to anyone who has a credible sexual assault or sexual harassment claim against them? How about that? Just start there. And if they have more than one, let's say 4 in court at any given time, they just get written off as a stark fuck you. I think it's a good, you know what I mean? Will that weed out all the awful? No. Will it get rid of a couple of people in particular? Yes. Jesus Christ. So anyways, again, the upside is that these dickheads are having a hard time finding a talking point right now. They're going after the fact that, Dick Cheney is going to be voting for Kamala Harris because Trump is that bad. It isn't that Kamala Harris, is owed something, by, Dick Cheney owes her something, or she owes him something, and therefore they're aligned in some way. It's that as bad as Dick Cheney is, as bad as what he would want to do if he were in power, he views Trump as worse. And there is a broad swath of human beings. There's a huge group of people across the political spectrum who believe some gnarly shit. But even for them, Trump is a bridge too far. So now let's talk other dickheads. You're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide, by the way. I think that shows taste and breeding on your part. I'm proud of you. Proud of you.